Audio. All right. Hello, anybody who happens to already be here, and that's set. And anyone who's watching the at least hop on here and take care of this real quick after I just got back from walking around picking up trash, as always. Oh, and I'm congested, as always, as well. All right, so let's see. Got almost everything, it looks like. All right, so all that stuff's ready. Have the bathymetric world map because Google Earth constantly makes the stream lag out, so we use this now. And I will chug some water real quick before I get started. And I'm probably not even going to give that long for people to show up, anyways. If you show up late, oh well, that's life. You can scroll back along the load bar. Oh, so, for anyone who's not aware, somehow, I guess, while we're waiting for people to show up, I'll do a quick 1 year recap. Around late May, early June of last year, blah, 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 Israel and the US did a massive air campaign against Iran, uh, bombed a bunch of places, air defense systems, aircraft, radars, nuclear sites. The pretense for the attack was that Iran was about to make nukes. And since then, everything went kind of quiet, but Iran is unable to maintain its oil production at desirable levels for the global market as a major oil producer, with reasons for that being that their fields are old, the ones that are already producing, that is. Their fields are old. A lot of them have been producing since the 1920s. Their production numbers weren't that strong in the 20s, obviously, as nobody's were, but here, I'll show you, and this also serves as the once per stream self plug. You go to any video I made in the last 2 years, shut up, advertisement. Any video I've made in the last 2 years, under the PayPal and Patreon links, there's a free access drive link. There is no paywall to this because I'm not like tdeconomics.com or, I don't know, Bloomberg or the New York Times or whatever. This is free to access. PayPal, Patreon, YouTube, Super Chat, whatever stuff is appreciated and helpful, but there will never be a paywall to any of this. Get off. Stop. Oil data sets should have the, long term. So for countries that have been producing since like the early 1900s, I have long term graphs. But in this set of stuff, there's all folders full of all kinds of different graphs across all kinds of different stuff. And Iran is one of the ones that's been producing for quite a while. So they started back in the 20s, really got started in the 40s and then the 50s. So their stuff has been going for quite a long time. So it would be difficult to maintain anyways. And they also, to do so, they rely on a lot of natural gas reinjection to keep the fields pressurized. They also have other fields scattered about that they have not really touched, and stuff that is likely lying in some of these interior basins, along with their portion of the slope shelf here in the Gulf of Oman that they haven't really done anything with. And apart from that, a lot of their oil and gas equipment was constantly sourced from Russia, who was in reality getting it from the outside world. And since Russia got itself at least partially cut off, that limited the amount of stuff Russia has had access to. And so instead of supplying Iran, Russia has understandably kept what it's able to get for itself. So Iran has not been able to restore its 4 million barrel per day previous plateau. They got up to 3.4, but in the year or so since then, they've fallen down to around 3.1 and are still on their way downwards. And they're actually capable of, although for a shorter period of time, a higher plateau than 4 million barrels per day. But that effectively would require someone else managing things, on top of obviously the general Pentagon concern, which is just the fact that the regime in Tehran exists. And the Pentagon, the real US decision makers, wants every problem that can be quickly resolved, or at least quickly suppressed, out of the way before the Taiwan stuff starts over there, because that's going to be the big theater event of the decade and of probably the last several decades. So we have slowly been ensembling stuff in the Middle East, getting ready for this, and threw up kind of the theatrics of negotiations, put some quotation marks there. But in reality, it that's kind of a facade. I mean, the bullet points in the deal that Iran has to agree to were tailor-made for them to reject anyways. Because, number one is no more nukes, no more nuclear pursuance. Number two is no more regular missiles like cruise missiles and ballistic missiles. Number three is to stop operating and funding proxy groups around the region, and et cetera, et cetera. So those were things Iran was never really going to agree to, and they're like the only thing they theatrically agreed to was that maybe they would be willing to give their nuclear material to Russia, who would then make it in such a way as to it could only be used for power plants and not to make nukes. But we don't trust Russia, so that would be a non-starter for a deal anyways. So the assembly has been ongoing. Previously, we had the USS Abe Lincoln supercarrier and associated strike group, destroyers, missile cruisers, subs, etc. And the carrier itself carries 70 to 80 F-18s and F-35s, a combination. We had the U.S. military assets that are already normally in the Middle East. There's usually a squad of usually F-16s in Iraq. There's a set of A-10s on standby in Jordan. And we've been rotating again, usually, uh, I think it was like half a squad, so like 12 instead of 20 or 24, like half a squad of 22s out of whatever our base is in the UAE. However, over the past number of months since then, we have moved in. I don't know what exactly went where, so I'm just going to put vague arrows. We moved in a squad of F-35s, aka somewhere between 20 and 24. We moved in a squad of F-15s. We moved uh, a bunch of the B-52s, and I've seen no confirmation of B-2s, as in the stealth bomber, yet, but I've seen we moved B-52s down to Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. We've moved in to the entire region a whole bunch of air defense systems that have now visibly been seen, publicly set up to provide a AD shield. And we've flown in in-air in-air refueling tankers, and there was one other squad of combat jets. I forgot which ones it was, but that was up until the last few days. As of the last few days, things have surged up a bit more. So, first moving them over to the UK, and now moving them into the Middle East itself. We just sent in another full squad of F-35s. We are also sending an additional half squad of 22s, so that group in UAE will become a full squad. We are sending from the base near in South Carolina, close to where I've been stranded in exile for the past 6 years. As blah blah blah, Max Geo backstory. My real home is Fairbanks, Alaska, but I've been in exile since 2020 happened. So I've been down at my parents' place for the last 6 years. But moved a squad of F-16s in from that base, and also AWACS aircraft or EWACS. They're two different things, but people, for the most part, categorize them together. So I'm just going to write one. 5 different AWACS aircraft. Also, the UK has flown in. As far as I'm aware, just half a squad as of the moment of F-35s to their base in Cyprus. And we just announced that the Gerald Ford and assembled Navy group that we have in the Caribbean Sea that was way overkill for Venezuela. Turns out, most likely, it was not really overkill for the sake of Venezuela in the first place, because that ensemble group is now being sent over there to join the smaller Abe Lincoln group. So there will be 2 super carriers in the Arabian Sea, just outside the Gulf of Oman, or possibly sailing into it. And like I said, not just the Gerald Ford Strike Group, but on the theatrical uh, stage group that it had with it. So additional destroyers are also going along. It's not just the specific group surrounding the Ford. Now, it will take, depending on if it only just started today or if it started a few days ago when it was first announced that a undesignated carrier group will be joining the Abe Lincoln. It would take from the Caribbean or the US East Coast about 2 weeks to get there. So theoretically, if it most likely started moving back on the weekend, then not this weekend, but next weekend, after the coming weekend, is when it would get there. So not the 21st and 22nd, but the very end of the month, the 28th and the 1st of March, I think. But also within that time frame as well, we could be moving more stuff in, as all the extra buildup stuff that I went down just kind of happened within the last 48 hours. And as Buddy mentions here, is indeed actually the largest U.S. force assembly in the Middle East since the Second Gulf War, or the invasion of Iraq in 2003. There's the stuff of the AWACS and EWAC aircraft on their way. There's the one of the 2 split groups of 6 F-22s arriving at Lakenheath, where they're going to stop for the night or whatever before they keep going. The F-16s stopped over at the Azores. Blah blah blah. Gerald Ford and other surface vessels accompanying it. More footage of the F-22s. Some of the other AWACS and EWAC aircraft. Fuel tankers that were helping the 18 F-35s get down there. And Russian government plane heading down to Tehran, potentially as another evac route for some of the higher leadership, as the Iranian government like private jet left a few weeks ago. So now this is coming down to get some more people, and that is okay. That's back to stuff from before the last stream. So yeah, that is the point we've gotten up to now. So as always, I could end up being wrong and get humiliated, but for blatant reality's sake, if anybody was still somehow thinking I can't draw a confused face, so I'll just draw a question mark. If anyone was somehow still honestly thinking that this is not actually coming, it is. As that's one of the three things that was on the to-do list before Taiwan happens, is to quickly get Venezuela out of the way, Iran out of the way, and apparently, as has been indicated, Cuba out of the way as well. So that once this comes later this year or sometime next year, most likely, there will be no major other things elsewhere to tie down our military asset needs. Okay. I should have, well, I should have checked chat before, but there's nobody there anyways. Everybody's dead. So that is probably going to be it. Unless anybody says anything or asks anything, super chats, etc. If you got here late, obviously you can just go back on the time bar to not necessarily the start, but back far enough to when I first started. It looks like, yeah, right about there would probably do it. So I will, what am I doing? No, just X that off. So I will wait a few seconds for the delay to reach people while I drink some water. And if not, then I'm going to just sign off and go make some dinner. Oh, and in other, I said assorted news in the description. So in other random / assorted news, the fifth oil field is ahead of schedule now in Guyana by a month or two. So the fifth one will be coming online probably near the middle of the year instead of towards the end, and we'll be bumping Guyana up by about 250,000 barrels a day. And last time, as of the start of this month, it was at 892,000 total for Guyana. And its first field from 2019 and the second one from either 2021 or 2022 are uh, starting their declines. The one from 2022 is just starting. The one from 2019 is in the initial phase of its decline. It hasn't gotten steeper yet, but it also wasn't as high of a production level as the other ones. So in total, the background decline of Guyana is, or has seemed to be, roughly 2,000 barrels per day per month, maybe three, sometimes less than two. So somewhere between, over the course of this year, you would figure 20 to, maybe rounded up for safety, 30,000 barrels per day over the course of the year. From the 90 cap that it had initially reached. So that would bring it down to like 870 by the end of the year without the new field. But the new field coming in at 250 for a startup will see Guyana by the end of this year up at about 1.12 million barrels per day. and then the next field is coming online next year. And I don't I don't remember specifically, so don't quote me, but I think 2028 is a gap year, and then the next two large fields are coming online together in 2029. But I'm not positive, so don't quote me on that. All right, that is going to be the end, probably. Uh, closing the odds of closing the strait are zero. How would they do it? With what navy? With what military force? Their navy is like not even metaphorically a joke, it's actually a joke. Like we already in the past, as a response to just kind of a small offense, destroyed their navy in under 24 hours. That will be relatively easy to do again. And actually, their navy was kind of more worthwhile at the time when we did that the first time. Uh, as in odds of what them shooting back with ballistic missiles and cruise missiles, 120%. I mean, the regime, given the kind of obvious fact that some of them, at very least, have already fled to Russia, and we've seen two waves of tens of billions of dollars being wired out of their government's accounts to safe holdings in Switzerland, Russia, and somewhere in Dubai or whatever. They know that their time's up, but they're not going to just leave and step out willingly. I mean, they might leave, more of them might, leave physically, but still order the IRGC to like fire stuff back, even if they themselves are going to be up chilling with Assad in Moscow playing FIFA or whatever. But they don't have the same capacity that they did previously, like during the 12-day war, as they lobbed a lot of their stuff at Israel, and also a lot of their launching capacity was destroyed, as they still do have huge stocks of missiles in underground vaults. But remember, you've seen, probably seen before, the uh, the missiles aren't like things that they're not javelins, like not the javelin launcher, but an actual javelin that you, or like a spear that you just pick up and throw like Leonidas. They have the long range, not like anti-tank munitions, but ballistic missiles and cruise missiles have to actually be launched from a specific launching system, usually also attached to a vehicle. And a significant number of the launching systems were destroyed. So they still do have thousands of actual missiles, but the ability to launch them is heavily diminished from what it was before June of last year. Now, they could have, dozens, a few hundred extra trucks maybe also under the mountains, but we'll have to wait and see. The degree to which they would get through the uh, the AD shield, variable, I don't know, anywhere from like 10 to 30% maybe. And then uh, any damage from that would kind of also depend on accuracy. But apart from the AD shield itself, a lot of aircraft, a lot of combat jets are also not there to combat Iran's air force because it doesn't have a real one. It has like it previously had about 80 functioning combat jets, most of which were ancient F-14 Tomcats and even more ancient F-4 Phantoms. Now the functional count is somewhere between 40 and 60, and there's no way even they're stupid enough to fight with those. But if they are, oh well, they're gonna never see the F-22s and F-35s that shoot them down. But the assortment of other combat jets, including a lot of the IDF stuff and as they showed previously, after saying they wouldn't be involved, Jordan and Saudi Arabia and etc. also send up their jets primarily to shoot down incoming cruise missiles and drones and etc. Even though last time in particular, most of them were heading to Israel, Jordan still shot down a lot of them, and Saudi Arabia, who still kind of quote unquote publicly insists that they hate Israel. Saudi Arabia also shot down quite a few of them as well. Blah blah blah. Well, I just answered the universe's question, I guess, unintentionally. Blah blah blah. No. For an immediate answer to Mo's question, you see, Turkey is not a isolated pariah that also needs to be reset so that its massive oil, output capabilities can be utilized. Turkey kind of matters to the rest of the outside world, so they're not on the list of countries that uh, anyone's allowed to just do whatever to. Like for example, like Russia, has constantly been funding the various different insurgency groups in the Central African Republic and stealing gold and committing mass rapes. No one politically has cared because the Central African Republic, just using them as a particular example, is on the list of the gray list of countries that to the world at large effectively do not matter in their existence. So, uh, they're allowed to do whatever. Just like how Israel was allowed to just do whatever with Lebanon, and to an extent Syria, just like how Russia was kind of also allowed to just do whatever with Syria. Once you then get over to Iraq, who is now a stably major oil producer, that would be where a hammer comes down on you for taking actions in that regard. Uh, Previously, Iraq was in the same like category as Iran before the removal of Saddam, as the reason for the removal of Saddam was because Iraq's oil production constantly looked like this, constantly do this, because every decade or so, Saddam would do something random and stupid, like the Iran Iraq War, invading Kuwait, going into paranoid schizo genocide mode on the Kurds. And every time he did something crazy and stupid, it resulted in Iraq's oil production crashing. And so after the three strikes you're out rule passed in the decision making room over in the Pentagon or at NATO HQ or whatever, it was decided that this pattern's just going to repeat itself, so he has to go. And so that's why he was removed and the invasion happened. And now Iraq has been reliably between 4 and 5 million barrels per day and is going to be jumping up over 5 relatively soon. Iran is now in that same category. They technically always were, but now they're the only one left between the two of them. Like, also, if Israel started randomly attacking and bombing Saudi Arabia, for example, that would also be on the you're not allowed to do that list. So no, Israel is not going to be fighting or doing anything directly with Turkey, at least not yet. Turkey itself has kind of indicated it wants to go down a pathway that's inevitably going to start pushing its friends away and putting it at odds with the rest of NATO and the rest of the Middle East. So once Turkey meanders down that winding pathway far enough, it will then eventually, years from now, potentially enter into the category of it's okay to do stuff, but Turkey would be a case of we would also be involved and kind of be the ones like in direct control of it. Because even as far, however meandering Turkey wants to go down some wild Ottoman path, uh, Turkey's kind of a bit too important. And so even if anyone did do anything, we would kind of be uh, at the very minimum supervising that because we would want to make sure Turkey comes out and reemerges in a desirable way. They would not be on the list of parties who you can kind of just let do whatever or fall into pieces and reemerge as in whatever form, psycho form they feel like reemerging as. Okay, you you are exceedingly late, my friend. Sorry. You're gonna have to scroll back along the timeline to get to wherever you want to go. Let's see, how far, where does it start? Right about there, looks like. Okay, this actually went longer than I intended. I thought it would only be 20 minutes, but everyone in chat came back from the dead and started asking questions. So 32 minutes, that's probably where I'm going to cut it then, unless anything else comes up. But I really want to go eat my chicken. So I'll wait like 20 or 30 seconds for the stream delay. Now, X that, or yeah, I'll just go ahead and X that off now. It doesn't look like anything's showing up, so that's going to be the end of it. I will try to get the OPEC production levels video out, I don't know, tomorrow, maybe Thursday. And then if the oil demand levels and natural gas production levels data gets released this week, I'll try to have that up in the sometime over the weekend. If not, if it's being delayed till next week, then I have no control over that. So sorry in that regard, but that's it for this one. I'll